Welcome to Recovery Soapbox, brought to you by Brighton Recovery Center. I'm your host, Jonathan Saul, and our guest today is writer and life coach, Dennis Barry. He's the author of the best-selling book, Funky Wisdom, A Practical Guide to Life, and host of the Funky Brain podcast. Dennis has been in recovery since April 8th, 2003, during which time he became a successful businessman, athlete, and family man. His recovery journey helped him find his life's mission, to help others achieve their inner peace and master their lives. Dennis knows what it's like to feel hopeless and without positive direction. He transformed his life and now spends his time helping others to do the same. Dennis Barry, welcome to the Recovery Soapbox podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's great to be here. I love talking with fun, like-minded people.
Awesome. Well, so Dennis, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where are you now? And I don't know. Let's start with that.
Sure. Well, originally I grew up in New Jersey, which I usually don't talk about unless you brought it up. So you asked me. So anyway, I was there for 18 years. And then I moved up to Vermont for 10 years. I was a ski racer, ski bum, party, chef guy, all that stuff. Led that kind of lifestyle, which led pretty much to, like the beginning of my crazy life story. And then I moved out to Colorado in 99, and I was there until a few months ago when I moved to Mexico here and into paradise so I can live on the beach, because I realized after 30 years of living in the mountains and skiing and all that stuff that it's beautiful, gorgeous, and I love it, but I'm a beach boy now and I don't like shoveling snow.
I feel your pain. We are out here in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah, where the snow shoveling is about to happen, according to our weather report, maybe even on Friday. So we'll see.
Well, in February, I came down here, and I've been coming down here for many, many years. But I came down here in February for a whole month, and I rented an Airbnb. And while I was down here, I started talking to people, and I was like, wow, I can live here. Like my whole life is remote. And was kind of in transition over the last year and a half, like a lot of people. And I went back and I decided I was going to move here. And the 2 days after I got back to Colorado, it snowed 3 feet. I don't know if you remember last March, like the first week of March, it snowed 3 feet. And I was like, great, I'm out of here. So I sold everything I own and moved down here a few months ago.
That's amazing. And that was actually one of my questions was, well, why Mexico? I mean, what, you could go anywhere that's sunny and has a beach, San Diego or I don't know, Florida. Why Mexico?
Oh, I love it here. And again, I've been coming here a long time. I love the Paradise Beach. I love the blue water and the white sand and the vibe. And, I'm happy to dive into this quite a bit, but, whenever you go on vacation, and actually it's in my book I wrote about, which maybe you read, if you read through the whole book, but everybody talks about the real world, and at the end of every vacation, whether it's the mountains, the beach, the lake house, wherever it is you go, at the end of the vacation, everybody always says the same thing. Oh, it's back to the real world tomorrow. But that's not true. Like the crazy world that you're talking about, that's the crazy world that has us all stressed out and drinking and doing drugs and like doing all these things to cope with living in the crazy world. So we have to spend a lot of money to go back to the real world for a week where we belong, where as soon as we get there, we calm down and we're peaceful. We breathe better. We feel better. We communicate better. And I decided that I want to live here in the real world. And don't get me wrong, I'm not under any false illusions that I'm not going to have any of the worldly life's problems that everybody talks about. I've just decided to deal with my life problems here at the beach where it's calm and I don't have the stressors that a lot of you guys have up there.
Right. Well, isn't essentially that the premise or the foundation of your book is taking what we tend to experience on vacation, which is that relaxation, breathing better, maybe not eating better. Sometimes we kind of go off a little bit on vacation, but you're taking that mentality and that kind of body state and bringing it into your real world. So you can live that within yourself in your real world, right? Whatever that might be.
Yeah, sure. And again, like this wasn't a geographical cure to my life's problems. It
Right.
was a well thought out decision. I haven't been that mountain man guy for the last 20 years. So it was definitely an informed, responsible decision I made. So if anybody's thinking about that, running to a different location doesn't work unless you're in a better spot to do so, but not, oh, I'm in trouble, I need to go here. But the idea is that, I talk about it in my book, my coaching, I'm sure you teach us yourself in your treatment center, is it's not the place, it's the person. Everywhere I go, there I am. And we need to find healthy coping skills to live wherever we live. If we live in our car, in the middle of the desert, how am I going to cope when a scorpion comes along? Right. It's
Right.
like, it's just dealing with life stressors. Am I unsettled and coming from off center? So when life's problems come at me, I react emotionally, or am I coming from a place of center? In recovery land, I'm sure they call it on the beam. Am I on the beam and coming from a place of center where I can respond intelligently and calmly? And so I could do that anywhere in the world. I just happen to do it on the beach right now.
Love it. And I think that you write about this in your book, and we talk about it all the time in our treatment centers, is this idea, the difference between external motivators and internal motivators. And what you're talking about here is you need to work on the internal change, motivation, healing, and then it doesn't matter where you are once you have that, right? You can be anywhere and still be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And do you guys teach 12-step program? I'm not sure what you teach at your treatment facility.
Our program is empirically based, so we're focused on all the therapeutic modalities that are empirically driven, but we do also teach 12-step philosophy.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, whatever. I don't. It doesn't matter which way. It's just, I know I used to do a lot of 12 steps, so I know you'll identify with a lot of the sayings that we hear, the cliches all the time. But one of the speakers was Sandy Beach. I don't know if you ever heard him speak, but he always talked about it. He's like, I'm unsettled. The whole idea of this sobriety thing, it's not a not drinking contest. It's not, I haven't drank longer than you, I'm better than you. It's like, how do I act when the events of the world come to pass? When, it's easy to be great and happy and centered when there's enough money in the bank and the relationship's going well and there's no health problems. But when those things happen and I'm unsettled, how do I react? Right. And so, yes, the idea is this internal place. Am I coming from a place of peace, honesty, love, and understanding? And then that's how I react when the world throws their curveballs at me.
Right. Okay. Well, on that, kind of rewinding a little bit, we're getting into the meat of the book here, but rewinding a little bit. So I'm always curious. And I think you do talk a little bit about this in the book, but what prompted you to want to write this book and then actually follow through with it? What's the story behind that?
Yeah. So the name years ago in early sobriety, I would just like babble in meetings because I didn't understand what life was all about. And, it's still a day-to-day thing. But my friends would say all the time, oh, Dennis has funky brain again. And so I was going to call the book Funky Brain, but I like Funky Wisdom because it implies growth and awareness and that there was something good going on over the earth. But so I call the podcast the Funky Brain Podcast. And so I like that. But, the truth was, Jonathan, is that I didn't plan on writing a book. And I didn't do it for accolades or even to make money off it. The idea was that, I used to go on these long walks and listen to these inspirational things. And over time, I would type in my phone, or, I would speak into my phone. If anybody wants to know how to write a book, it's like, if you get things that come to your head, I would take my phone, open notes, hit the record button, and talk these like inspirational, motivational things that came into my head that helped me grow emotionally, which is what it's all about, right? Emotional sobriety. And then all of a sudden I realized I had like 100 pages of written, talked stuff that I put in my phone. So I just kind of started writing it down on a Word document. And then I had like dozens and dozens of pages of stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe I should organize this. So I learned there's programs that you can use to organize your thoughts and put a book together. And then it just kind of turned into this book. But the whole idea, just like with what you do, is like I suffered for so long with my thoughts and my ways of coping with my human condition, which was drugs and alcohol. And that whole idea is like, if I could just save one life, and help somebody be less miserable or depressed or want to kill themselves or somebody else or whatever it is you're going through or feeling. If I could just help one person live happier, then that was the purpose behind the book. And I mean that with all my heart. That's why I did that.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that sentiment. I feel the same way about treatment and about helping people get their lives back in treatment. And if there were, and there are a lot of people out there like us just wanting to help that one person, that's a lot of people being helped, right?
Really
and that's
is.
the global view is this thing can cascade into something really meaningful. So I appreciate that, and that you shared this with the world. And I hope a good number of people get to read it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
So, oh, sorry.
No, it's the same with the podcast too. It was like, if I could reach a few people that are searching for answers and wonder why can't I stop drinking? Why can't I stop doing drugs? Or any other unhealthy coping skills that we're using, unhealthy behaviors or beliefs that I have to cope with life, and change that around a little bit. Instead, we always say I used to use drugs and alcohol to alter my mind. And now I use meditation to alter my mind, and helping other people, and drinking lots of water, and eating well, and not eating too much sugar. And like now I use all those things to alter my mind.
Yes. Nice. Well, for those of you who are curious, this is my copy of the book, and this is what it looks like. Funky Wisdom. You can get it on Amazon. It's rated as one of Amazon's best sellers at this time. And I highly recommend this read. Mine is a little annotated, so apologies for that, but I just wanted to show the cover so people could see it. And I think it's a great read. Even if you don't feel like you're struggling in life, there's some really great tips in here to kind of practice. And I'll get into a little bit of that later. And I just wanted to let you know, Dennis, that we'll be putting some copies of this book in our treatment centers for people to grab and use while they're in treatment.
That's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that. That makes me feel really great.
Yeah. Well, it warrants that, because it's a lot of the stuff that we teach too, but you've kind of formulated this into your own language here. And you've taken some concepts that are taught in therapy or group, and you've put a really unique spin on a lot of these things. And somewhere in there, you talk about keeping it simple. And I'm a musician, right? And so when I'm writing a song or engage with people writing songs, we always say like, to keep it simple, stupid, because once you try to put too many changes in or too many notes in there, it just gets all gummed up, and it feels, it's just not authentic. So the more simple and open, in my mind, the better. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's always there is an area where I talk about that, and it's always we want to remove first and then add. Like, what the average length of the average length of like euphoria around a self-help book is? It's between 3 and 7 days. So usually when people reach out for self-help books, it's because there's some sort of crisis, right? So the drug and alcohol use is coming to a head. The wife is going to leave me. The husband's going to leave me. The kids are messed up. I got a flat tire. I need more money. Like whatever it is, there's a health problem. So we buy a book to help us fix that. During that time, over the course of 3 to 7 days, maybe we'll read some answers in there, or some of the crisis has passed. Some of the pain behind the crisis has passed. So they really don't have a really long lasting effect, which is kind of unfortunate. But then people have stacks of self-help books everywhere. And we always trying to add all these things to fix us, when the answer is really to remove the obstacles that are keeping us from getting where we want to go. So when you say keep it simple, to me, that's what that means. It's like over the course, I'm almost 50 years old. So it's like over the course of time, I add in unhealthy coping mechanisms. I add in unhealthy beliefs about myself and about people or politicians or this, what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat. All these things get added in, and they keep me from getting to my true potential or to getting where I want to be in life. When really what we should do is remove some of these old harmful beliefs, old harmful behaviors, old piles of clothes we don't wear anymore, like become more of a minimalist. And there's people out there to talk about this, the minimalists.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like remove the things in our life that don't serve us anymore, or did they ever even really serve us in the first place? So it's just re-examining our lives and getting really true to who we are and make room for the success and the inner peace that we want into our lives.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, let's dive in and talk about the program. You have developed the program, and you kind of wrap the program into 6 steps of action, right? Mm-hmm. And without getting too far into it, I want people to, get the book and read it and glean what they're going to glean for it. But I feel like touching on the steps is good. I'll just rattle them off here. You've got admission of the problem, meditation, spirituality, inventory, cleaning up the past, and maintenance. And these are the 6 steps of action. And then in the book, you talk about each one individually and how to kind of go through them. I guess I would ask, based on your 6 steps, there is, knowing that the 12-step philosophy, right? There is a link there. How did you settle on these 6 steps, and how did that come about?
Well, for those that know the 12-step program or don't, I mean, it's an extremely useful program. And, everybody always says, once you start to realize that it's not just about not drinking, that it's really about growing up, about looking the world in the eye, and, working hard on yourself to achieve that emotional sobriety. We're always like when I was in the 12-step rooms a lot, we're always like, this is a great program. It's a blueprint for living life. And everybody in the world should do this program every day, but most people won't, because they don't think they have any type of addiction or anything to use it on. So they don't use the principles that are in the program, and, life just continues to pass them by. Or there are people that do have addiction problems and won't step into the rooms. So what I wanted to do is, and to continue on with that, I also have to say that when I first started, I find that the big book is, while useful, it's hard to decipher on your own, and that's why everybody says keep going to meetings, talk with lots of people, and help them decipher the book. And I just wanted to make a simpler program that anybody can use on the planet, regardless of whether you have an addiction or not, and just use the principles of that program in your daily lives. And the first one is admission, like you said, and it's really like, you can't solve a problem you can't admit exists. So if you can't say out loud, I drink too much, I eat too much, I get too angry, I'm, whatever my problem of the day is, if I can't admit that it exists, I can't do anything about it. And then the next one, what I did was, because in the 11th step, it's the prayer and meditation step. And in my opinion, that's a huge mistake. And prayer and meditation really needs to be right up top, because I need to calm down. I don't have any chance of solving any of my problems if I'm all worked up or overwhelmed or whatever. So I made that the second step. And if you're in the world of the 12 steps, they always say, read page 86, 87, 88 first, right? Your sponsor always says, read those, which is, how it basically gives you instructions how to meditate and pray, right? When I wake up in the morning, I give thanks to God, or I forgot, I used to be able to quote the book. And before I go to bed at night. And so I just made that the second step. I think we need to, one, admit there's a problem, and then I need to calm down. And now I'm coming from a place of center where I can approach everything non-emotionally and have a better chance of solving the problem. Then the spirituality part, and then taking that inventory is kind of important. It's like, where am I angry, resentful, sad, fearful? What were some of my things that I need to move beyond or put in the past in order to, like I was just talking about, remove first. Yeah, I need to remove those things. I need to remove the pain, the anger, the fear, the sadness, and then I can approach life a different way. And that's really important. And in the book, and I just go through how to do all those processes, and then continue to give back or make amends where you were wrong. Change, and this is where you change your life and go help somebody. All of our problems stem from our selfishness. And when I go help somebody, and some days it's like I give somebody some money, some days it's like I open the door for somebody, some days I've made my life a life of service with my coaching, my podcast, the writing the book, and it fills me up every day. But if you're not in a position to make that your lifestyle, you could still find ways to help people. And when you do that, like, think about how good you feel when you help somebody. Just do that more often.
Yeah.
And you feel better about yourself. And as a result, you'll have more confidence, be less resentful, and you'll be happier and feel better. So that's like a summary of everything.
Good. Okay. And then the one other thing I liked in how you elicit your reader to approach this with an open mindset is the concept of how. Can you talk a little bit about how?
Yeah, sure. Again, it's another concept we hear all the time, but people say all the time, Dennis, how do I become successful? How do I lose 30 pounds? How do I write a book? How do I stop drinking? How do I improve my relationship? And the answer is in the question. How? It stands for honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. And this also goes back to the steps that I was just talking about, but I first have to be honest and say, look, things aren't going well. And I have to stop blaming, complaining, and accusing other people for my failures or shortcomings, and say, oh, this is going wrong. And then after I'm honest about that, then I become open to seeing a new way of living. And then I become willing to apply those new things into my life so I can make my life change. Because, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
Yeah. It's a simple concept and something that people could take with them, the how approach to life.
I like it. Yeah, that's one of the things that stuck out at me as particularly helpful in this process. So thank you for that. Okay, well, in each the 6 steps of action, you make it a point in the book to define those in bold, to define each step of action. And I found that interesting because people are going to know what admission is, and people are going to make a kind of roundabout guess at what meditation is, right? But you said, no, this is what these things are, and this is what they mean. I thought that was really well done. Why did you do it?
Well, like I said, you thought it stood out, and that's where I think that and I'm not like trying to rewrite the 12 steps or say that I'm better at anything. I just said that when I was reading them, it was confusing to me. It wasn't clear. Yeah. And so I wanted to make all the principles very clear. So you can do it by yourself. You don't necessarily need a sponsor, although I think it's nice to have a mentor or somebody in your life to run things by, not because they're better than you, just because it's a fresh set of eyes that's not emotionally attached to your stuff. It could be a counselor, a therapist, a friend, a family member. It's like, just go up to somebody who you respect and say, hey, can we go grab some coffee? That's fine. But I also want you to be able to read the book and say, oh, well, I could do this.
Yeah.
And I want it to be clear that anybody, regardless of whether you have a problem, can do these steps all the time and just have a better day. And that's what I like.
Okay, that's good. I thought when I was reading that and I saw that the structure, I thought, well, this is a guy who understands that people are going to read a word and think something different, perhaps, right? And have some sort of internal idea of what they think that word means. But he wants you to know what it means, how he's talking about this particular concept specifically, right? Yeah. And so then you go and you define it for us. And then I can say, oh, okay, meditation. This is exactly what it means. because some people, like you say in the book, will see meditation and go, oh yeah, Buddhist monk out there on the Himalayas sitting on the edge of a cliff. That's not me, right?
Yeah.
But I like how you define that, because it helps the structure, and it helps any kind of potential for somebody misunderstanding what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. It's important. That's something else in really early sobriety. And I would say to my sponsor, and I do this with my clients all the time, they're like, well, what does that mean? And I would say, well, go look it up. Like, I'm not going to sit here and do all your work for you. And like, I just did a video series. That's what this life mastery school stuff is. I do these video series for people to see. And one of the things I did one on, I'm doing one on health and wellness. And I use a holistic approach to holistic health. But do you know what holistic means? And most people, yeah, when you hear that word, and I've been asking people, it's really funny. Most people think holistic means some sort of spiritual approach to whatever it is you're talking about. And so I looked it up, and after 40 years or whatever of thinking, oh, it means something spiritual or something like that. What holistic means is whole.
Yeah.
I mean, whole, so I wanted to look that up. And early in sobriety, I said because we say all the time, grant me the serenity to accept the thing. And then somebody's like, I said, what does serenity mean? And my sponsor was like, well, look it up. And I did. And that's where I started learning how to look things up so I understand life better. That was one of my reasons I drank, is I didn't understand life. And now we have Google. So if you don't understand something, Google it. Now, check your sources.
Yeah.
When you're on Google. But the truth is, the answer to any question is out there. And if you're proactive about life, you're going to get further.
Right. That's awesome. Speaking about meditation, what does meditation do for you in your life?
Oh, it's really everything. And I just did the video series on mindfulness and meditation, so it's really one of my favorite topics. If you're not meditating, I don't care how happy, healthy, and successful you are, you're not as happy, healthy, and successful as you could be if you were meditating on a regular basis. And when we talk about meditation practice, it's what I just said. It's a practice. And most people and me in the past, I was the same way. It's like, if you meditate for 5 minutes, once every other week, you're not going to get the benefits that are promised out there from all the apps now and the websites and the people trying to teach you meditation. I can't teach you mindfulness and meditation per se. It's really just a state of being that when you're ready, it kind of happens to you. But it is practice. When you meditate, it actually has physiological effects on your body, and it really helps you calm down, and it produces the happy chemicals that you've probably heard about, your serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, oxytocin. Like, all those things are produced on some level. You get those from other sources, but I'm just saying, we're talking about meditation quickly here. When we meditate, let's say we produce some serotonin, and serotonin is that chemical that helps keep us calm. It does other things too, but for our purposes, it helps keep us calm, and it keeps the people in our vicinity calmer too. So if you're meditating in groups, it's way more powerful. I'm sure you've experienced this as well than if you're meditating alone. And it's true. I mean, there's actually like vibrations that come off of you, and it's infectious. And but if you only do it once every other week or on blue moons or whatever, you're not going to get the effect. It's the same thing as picking up a set of dumbbells and you do 10 curls and then you come back in a month and do 10 more. What's going to happen? Not much.
Right.
And it's the same thing with meditating. Now, let's say you're meditating. It's the same as driving a car. You put gas in your car and you go drive around, and then you have to put more gas in your car. And the same thing with meditation. It's like, if I meditate, I'm going to get the effects of everything I was just talking about, but it kind of wears off throughout the day, or even in an hour, depending on your stressful life or situation. So I just need to check in and get back to, like I said earlier, get back to center, right? And meditation helps us get to center. And meditation, is not, the point of meditation is not to control your mind and your thinking. It's to not let your thinking control you. And that's the difference. And I want people to understand that. It's just, everybody always says, I can't stop my mind. Well, you don't want your mind to stop, right? Your mind is going to think. It's designed to do that. When you stop thinking, you're dead. So we don't want that. And you have on average like one thought every second. And now that would be great if they were all happy, useful, productive thoughts, but they're mostly useless or even harmful thoughts. So if I can slow down my thinking and not eliminate my thoughts, but just allow them to pass through me, then I have a better chance of being successful throughout the day and in my whole life.
I love it. In the book, you challenge the reader to try this meditation. You give all the reasons why people typically say, I can't meditate, and there's a whole list of why we can't, right? But then you challenge the reader to do this, look on YouTube, find this 3-minute meditation, right? And I challenge you to do it. And so I took you up on your challenge and I went for it. I'd like to meditate. I love to meditate, but like a lot of people, I get lost in my daily busyness and it takes over, and I don't have a lot of opportunity to do that. I don't make a lot of opportunity to do that, right? But I did a quick 3-minute on the beach guided meditation, and it was amazing, for just those 3 minutes. And if I could do that every day, which I'm going to challenge myself to after hearing you and doing this, I know it has a world of benefit for me and probably everybody out there. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that too. And I think if everybody, 3 minutes is like more of a, it's either just starting meditation or it's like a quick check-in to get back on the beam. But really, if we can get to that place where we're doing 20, 30-minute meditations on a daily basis, you'll see changes in your life. But the reason for the 3-minute meditation, which I want people to hear, is that let's say you get centered in the morning. I wake up, instead of checking Facebook or watching politics, I get centered, and I feel great and everything's going well. And an hour later, I'm in rush hour, and then somebody pisses me off, and now I'm off the beam, right? I'm off center. Now, I don't have to wait till tomorrow to get and ruin the next 20 hours of my life to get centered again. I can get centered. Right. We say in recovery land, start your day over whenever you want. It's like if you get off, here's where the 3-minute meditation comes in. It's like, go sit on the toilet, pull up YouTube, because we're attached to our phones 23 hours and 55 minutes a day. And look at a 3-minute video, get recentered, and then go back into your day. Don't waste another day of your life being upset, angry, resentful.
Yes. Awesome. God. Now, God is always an interesting subject. I know in the rooms or, in any of the 12-step programs. And then in general, in daily life, everybody has their own opinions on what is, what isn't. And then in the book, you go through a good explanation of where God lives, and if you're a non-believer, where you can find this. Can you say a little bit more about how you developed your idea of God and spirituality?
Sure, yeah. And I'm not sure if I wrote in the book the whole story, but my sponsor very early on, he wanted me to write my concept of God. And so I wrote down and I came up with that God was this Gandalf wizard type figure with a long beard and a big hat and a staff, and he could bonk me on my head and make all my problems go away. And over time, I realized that you can't define what God looks like or whatever, because then you're putting like lines, you're putting limitations on what God can do. And that made a lot of sense to me. And, like a lot of people, I grew up Catholic or Christian or whatever it was. And I didn't even realize I was angry about religion until I got to AA and everybody started talking about that. And I was like, oh yeah, me too. Because I'm a conformist. I wanted to conform to everybody else's opinions. So I didn't have my own. So I had to really look into that, do my own research, Google it, stuff like that. And, I got to this place where it was like, God just is. It's this presence that makes the grass grow and makes my hair grow, although not for us, and makes our fingernails grow. I mean, God is just this presence that is bigger than me, and I'm not it. And I like that. And I also connect with the Buddhist tradition, and not so much the dogmatic, the realms and God, the deities that it gets into, but Buddha was just this man who came to enlightenment, and he has his teachings just like the other major religions, and he says, I encourage you to challenge my teachings until they become your truth, because if they're not your truth, they're not the truth. And I was like, that's something I can really connect with. And so, God is just this presence that is, and I don't have to overthink it. My problem, I wrote my book and I do my podcast about, is my funky brain. I think too much. My problem is not my drinking, although there are some physical problems with that. But the real problem is my thinking. I don't know how to feel and think. So I use drinking and drugs to cope with that. Now there's cross addictions. So I stopped drinking, but I might eat too much chocolate cake or cookies in my case, or watch porn, or go shopping with money I don't have, or scroll on my phone, or make mindless phone calls. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, not much. What are you doing? Oh, nothing. I'm sitting in traffic. What are you doing later? These are all distractions from feeling and thinking. And we don't even realize it because we're so used to doing them.
Right.
So,
Okay. Resentment, fear, and secrets. I like this chapter or this section of the book. You kind of outline a process here to help us walk through. It's really hard questions. In that process, in the book, there are measures that you introduce to help hold the reader accountable, right? So the idea there are some questions like, what's your part in it, right? When you're going through this process and you're going through the healing process, you need to hold yourself accountable in a certain way. How do you see this process as being effective for people who are sitting here, doing the work on their own?
Well, yeah, let's take a step back about 3 minutes ago, where we talked about the how approach. I have to be honest with myself, and who are the people in our lives that we can fix? It's just us, right? Yeah. So I have to stop the blaming, the complaining, the accusing. I have to forgive myself for my past. So I really just need to take an honest look at myself. I work with a lot of couples. I do a lot of addiction recovery. About half of my practice is addiction recovery, half is love and relationship coaching. And when I do that, the reason I bring this up is applicable to your question, is that whenever I work with couples, it's always separately. It's never together. It's never the three of us sitting in a room talking about, oh, he did this, she did that, because it's always unbalanced. Somebody wants to be there more than the other. Somebody's more talkative. Somebody's angry, or whatever. Right. So what we do is, to address your question, is we work separately, and you work on improving yourself, and then you bring your improved self back into the relationship. It's really the only way that it works. And when you're doing these steps that you're talking about and getting rid of these resentments, these fears, the secrets, it's like, what was my part? Which was all, like, we have to think, you can get technical and say, oh, you could dive deeper into it and be like, how did a child have a part in being abused? Or how does a woman who was raped have a part? And it's like, well, and that is some deep stuff to get into for sure. And this, my comment on this isn't a blanketed approach. It takes time and effort to get through stuff like this, which I do have. And you have to ultimately get to a place where you forgive the people that have done this to you, because time's ticking. If time even exists, which I'm not sure it really does. I mean, there's just this endless universe and endless time. But our time here is finite and really short. We think 100 years is a long time if we make it that long, but it's really quick. And so how are we spending our time? So we need to get to a place where we recognize our part, And we have to move beyond the hurt, the resentment, the fear, and the sadness if we're to enjoy our time here. And so that's where the my part comes in.
I like that. I like that. It's not a focus on, all the things that have happened to you, right? It's also a focus on how you acted on the world when those things were happening, right? And then your response to those things cause ripple effects in different directions as well. And in effect, you might at the same time have been hurting others, right? So you always want to, like you just said, you're not going to change anyone else. You got to just keep, stay on your side of the street, as they say, right? Keep it clean.
And then move from a place of center.
Yes.
When I'm blaming, complaining, accusing, or living in sadness or fear or frustration or whatever it is, I'm not centered. And when I'm not centered, I don't know where I stand. And when I don't know where I stand, it's hard to take that first step towards freedom, towards health, towards happiness and success.
Right. You can't fix a problem that you don't know exists, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Another concept you bring up is humility in this process and being humble. How do you, in your view, how does that play into the healing process, becoming humble?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big topic. But humbleness, that humility, is different than humiliation. Humility is humbleness. And when I'm humble, I'm not taking things personally. I'm not so sensitive to criticism. It's not the blame, complain, accuse thing. It's more like, oh, it's okay. And I'm honest with myself and with other people. And it's really hard when I'm sick and sad and fearful and angry to come from that place of humility. It's much easier to blame. When I'm humble, I can see my part in things much easier. And it's not a big of a deal as I'm making it either. But humbleness, it's one of those things where it takes a while to get to that humbleness, but it also takes no time at all, right? It's if usually, like what we're talking about here with sobriety is that I was in enough pain, sadly, I was in enough pain or suffering to make changes. Sadly, that's the way it happens in my life. Like most of us as humans, we don't like change so much, right? We find a way to cope and get through life as best as we can, and then we kind of hang out, because why push harder to make more money if I have enough money? Why change my diet if I don't have health problems? If the relationship is going well, why do I need to work on that, right? So the pain and suffering is usually what forces us into a solution. And the pain and suffering can cause that humility or that humbleness we're talking about here, and say, wow, my life just fell apart. I don't have any money left. My health has fallen apart. I've lost all my relationships. Now I'm willing to change. And that's that humbleness. And I'll do whatever it is you tell me, because the way I'm living isn't working. But also humbleness, we can get to a place shortly right after that, maybe like a month or so, when everything's so much better now. And now I know what to do now. I got it under control. And then life kicks you in the gut again, because that's what life can do. And if I haven't grown or continued to grow and held on to that humbleness, that humility, then I'm more vulnerable to falling back into that pit.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's really important to see your part. Again, we just talked about this, but to see your part in it, and that in itself, when you can get there open and honestly, that I think can really just help with that humility piece, seeing your part in it and recognizing that everything you do is a two-way street when it involves another person, right? Okay, well, this brings me to maintenance. Yeah. So in the end, the last step of action here is maintenance. And as you said, the life cycle, so to speak, of a self-help book on the shelf is pretty short. How do you encourage your readers or your clients to get into maintenance and then stay there? It seems like a really difficult place to continue this process over and over and over again? How do you encourage them to keep at it?
Yeah, great question. And again, this goes back to our beliefs and behaviors about ourselves. And this is central to my coaching. It's like, how do I feel about myself in, certain areas of my life? How's my body, my health, my relationships, my spiritual life, my finances, my career, and where do I want to be in those areas? And, now we created a goal. And what's keeping us from getting to our goal is our subconscious thinking. It's our subconscious mind. Our conscious mind is the mind of intent. So it's the mind that says, this is my to-do list. These are my goals. I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm going to eat better and have better relationships. And my subconscious mind says, let's go to happy hour and get a burger and some cake. And we do what our subconscious mind says because we've been programmed to do that for, it could be months or 30 years or 40 years. And so it takes a long time. Our subconscious mind dictates 80 to 90% of all of our activity. So if we've been drinking or doing other bad behaviors, I use bad in a bad way, harmful behaviors for months or 10, 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to take longer than a week or two to undo those behaviors.
Yeah.
So I encourage people to do it by saying, look, we've been able to stop drinking. We've been able to stop eating a pound of cookies every night. We've been able to stop blaming people for hurting us. And the way we did that is through meditation, through eating well, drinking lots of pure water, stop eating sugar, little things like this, writing, reading, growing your mind. And if we do all these little things on a daily basis, then we won't we won't slide back into that old behavior. But the biggest piece, I think, in my opinion, is the accountability. Right. And that's where having a coach, a mentor, a counselor, accountability partner of some sort is going to help keep you on track until we reprogram our subconscious thinking. So we have to remember our subconscious mind does good things too. Right.
Yeah.
Like we brush our teeth. We wake up in the morning, we brush our teeth because when we were 3, our parents said, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. So we did that through repetitive action. You go to the bathroom because your parents were like, stop pooping your pants, stop pooping your pants, stop pooping your pants, go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. And now we just do that as part of our routine. So our minds, when we were 15 years old, or at least in my case, said, I'm overwhelmed, let's drink. I'm overwhelmed, let's drink, let's get stoned. And so I've programmed my mind for 20 years to do that. So I have to undo that. And we do that through meditation, diet, exercise, the holistic approach I mentioned.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I often have that conversation with folks and just, I'm good. I'm ready to leave treatment. I've learned all I'm going to learn here. And, people try to leave early or whatever. And it's, the question then is, okay, Johnny, how long did it take you to get to this point, right? To get to coming to treatment, the process of becoming addicted, staying addicted, and then seeking help, how long was that? Oh yeah, it's been like 15, 20 years. Okay, great. So in 2.5 weeks, you've got this thing licked.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty good. And then the point obviously is like, one could even maybe argue that it takes just as long to get well as it did to get sick. Right. So you have to put in the time and all of the effort to get there.
Yeah. And keep that humbleness that you were talking about, the humility.
Yeah, 100%. So then the book then moves into, I have so many questions, but I'm skipping a lot of them just because I know that, I'd like to keep it moving here. The book then goes into a whole part 2, a whole host of other concepts that are kind of like a quick flash, 1 or 2 pagers, 3 pagers in these concepts of things like daily living, perfectionism, the past, your mindset. And I thought that, maybe we should pick one of those and talk about it. The one I particularly that jumps out at me, so I thought I would ask you a question about it, is be likable. So when you're telling someone, all right, well, you got to be likable, what does that mean? How do you tell someone to be likable?
It's funny you picked that one. I forgot about that one, but but the idea is that like when I'm talking with somebody now, and one of his struggles is that he gets upset when people don't, like, he makes an effort to talk to people and they're not responding back in kind. And it's because you want to be like a mirror of what you want in your life. So if I wouldn't go up to somebody who's unlikable and unapproachable and say, hey, let's go get some coffee and hang out and talk about the world, right? I want to talk to somebody who is likable. And so I want to become that person, a quote unquote better person myself. And so what does that mean to you? It might mean different things to different people. Like being likable to one person might mean like, I want to talk about politics all day. Do we have the same like-minded views about politics? Well, I don't talk about politics with anybody, so maybe we wouldn't be a good fit. But I'm likable with somebody else who it wants to talk about the ocean or spirituality or other like-minded topics. But ultimately, there are some principles I think that most people would agree with. Was what's likable? Well, it could be open-minded, honest, healthy. You can name a list and try to become that person. And if you don't know, ask for help or Google it. How do I become healthier? How do I be a better listener? I think that was in there. Be likable. People love talking about themselves more than anything else in the world. So rather than waiting to interject my opinion or my next sentence, what about listening to what people want to say? I come from a sales background. So listening is the best tool you could possibly have in your tool belt in sales. It's like, let people talk about themselves. If you let people do all the talking, do you know what they say at the end of any conversation? It was so great talking with you. Yeah. So become a good listener and you'll become more likable. And, some people just had it tougher than others. Some people are less approachable. And that comes from, this type of activity comes from taking a good deep look at yourself. What was my part in it? Well, maybe I caused some turbulence in my family or my romantic relationships because maybe I wasn't as likable as I could have been, or approachable or loving, kind, and caring. So how can I make those changes to become that person and attract those people into my life?
Yeah, and then generally having a general positive attitude. I think you mentioned that in that chapter too. Just if you're negative all the time about everything, then makes you unlikable for the most part, right? So
it does, and that's who you attract into your life too.
Totally. And the law of attraction, right? It's all in there on the things you attract in your life. But I like that one. I think it's important because it's true. If human interaction, yes, you can attract people with like-minded political views or worldviews in any way. And if those two kind of interact together to be negative, that is one thing. But for the most part, people do like to interact with others that are generally positive.
Yeah, or at least for what you define as positive.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and then moving into the last section of the book, you get into like your podcast. You get into the funky brain. I called it the funky bunch because it's a group of funky stuff. Funky meditation, funky health, funky money, funky love, and funky God, right? And I like that because that ties into the title of the book, and it also it ties into your podcast, right? And I thought that was a really great way to wrap up the book there. But I guess just to kind of like segue into my last kind of question, that was just more of a comment. So thank you for writing those.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, it was really cool. It was just really because the funky wisdom was the second part of that title, and all nonfiction titles are like one short title followed by a bunch of long words. But that's what it is a practical guide to life. So those other things are like funky health, a practical guide to health. Instead of all the wordy scientific things that nobody really understands, I just wanted this to just be practical stuff. Like, the idea, the concept of heaven is like be a good person, don't lie, cheat, steal, be likable, be humble, and you're going to have heaven here on earth. I think that was really the original concept behind it all, but we've complicated it all. So I just wanted all this to be practical, simple stuff for people to be able to latch onto.
Simple, keeping it simple.
Keep it simple.
I like it. So then you do encourage, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you do encourage people to find a mentor. And if this book became, as big as the big book, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem, because there'd be groups centered around your book, and there would be a whole community based on it. But as where the book stands now, and somebody goes through this program and wants to find a mentor of sorts, what is your ultimate suggestion there? How do we do that?
Well, again, find somebody in your world, or if you're not, and that's why I think AA is a great place it's a great intro. It's a great place to go and be surrounded with people who are also trying to figure life out along with a similar goal, and it's staying sober there. But, if you go to church, if you're in a coffee shop, if you're at work, wherever, keep your open mind and find somebody in your world, or even on the outskirts of your world, and just approach them. Be like, I'm struggling in life. How did you get to where you are? People would be flattered beyond more than you think. I would drop everything I'm doing if somebody walks up to me, and I still do it. Not just it's not I have this book, oh no, or I'm a coach, you have to schedule time with me and pay me. If somebody comes up to me and is like, Dennis, I need help, I'm gonna be like, let's go talk. I have time in like an hour. Let's do it. Let's radically change your life. But you have to make an effort. You have to take that first step and ask for help. A lot of people look at asking for help as a sign of weakness, but it's not. It's a sign of strength. It says, hey, you know what? I'm struggling here and I don't know how to get through here. Can you help me? And I was taught to have an expert in every area of your life. And it's like, if I get sick, I need to go to the doctor. If I have to go to court, I need a lawyer. I hate doing my taxes, so I have to have an accountant. Otherwise, I'm going to go to jail. Right. So, and I'm not a perfect person, and I need help in those categories. I have a coach too, and I think everybody should to help us get there, because wherever there is, and it's not I'm better than you. I'm not emotionally attached to your stuff, and I have some training as a coach to see things from a more of a psychological point of view and say, hey, why don't we try this? And that's all it is. Ask somebody for help, have a mentor, and have a mentor in every area. Have a financial mentor, a health mentor, whatever, like relationship mentor. Ask for help and you'll get there faster. Remember, before we had Google Maps and Waze and all these things, we had to ask for directions. And it was always a stereotype, like the men wouldn't ask directions. I was never one of them. I always stopped. And I would be in like a city somewhere, and I was always the guy who stopped and said, can you help me get here? Because I would rather ask somebody and get there in 10 minutes than drive around for 2 hours lost. Right. And I drove around for 15 years lost, drunk and stoned. And so now it's like, if I get stuck, I ask somebody for how to get out.
Well said. And that brings us full circle back to the beginning. So Dennis Berry, I want to conclude by thanking you for being on the podcast today. We really appreciate you and the work that you've done in this book. And we encourage people to get help and ask for help. And sometimes asking for help, the first step is reading a book about it, right? And then going on from there. It is our pleasure to have you on our podcast. And we hope to see you again for your next book, which is?
Well, hopefully it's Funky Health, and I'm working on it, yes. But it might take another year.
That's good. Take your time. We'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon.
All right.
Okay. Bye, Dennis.
Bye.